Welcome back to the United Pubcast, and Larry, this is how we should start every morning, beating Arsenal twice in one game. This is stuff of absolute dreams. Thoroughly enjoyed this morning's pre-season match. Obviously, it's a late one for the people in the UK, but a 7 a.m. game for us here in Sydney, which was good to wake up for and have a bit of breakfast and watch Man United. And ultimately, look, as I said, okay, beating Arsenal is one of those ones before the game. If we lost, it's only pre-season, but if we win, which we have, so no, it's a good showing and a good step forward. But ultimately, performance, sort of in the context of the performance, in regards to minutes and sort of sharpness, result aside, I was really happy with what I saw.
I'm with you, mate. Really, really happy. I think the second half you can almost dismiss. I think the best indication of where the team is at is the first half, because in most preseasons you find that majority of your starting players will be in that first half 11, and we'll get into some players who might actually be pushing their way into Ten Hag's plans that maybe weren't originally in the Dutchman's thought process. But all in all, you're right. And some of the first touch football that we saw, brilliant. And you can, without dissecting the game too much, because I'm sure you'll have questions and we'll go through it, the biggest improvement to United, I have to say, has probably been Mason Mount into the midfield, because it's not Bruno as a focal point for creativity now. Mason Mount seems to be taking some pressure off in that respect. So all in all, really happy. Can I also say, because I'm sure we're going to praise lots of players, but this player no one's going to think about, Tom Heaton, great goalkeeper, great performance.
Yeah, no, and look, he didn't save the penalty from Fabio Vieira, but he's the winning keeper in a shootout, so he can say he was the difference maker. But you touch on Mason Mount there, and I'll just say, g'day to George in the chat. Mainoo so calm and collected. Mainoo will definitely come into this discussion. And Justin, hope you well. If you are in the chat, do let us know your thoughts on all things Man United and the match. And Justin just reaffirming that Mainoo and Sancho, great first half. Really hope Sancho carry on. We'll touch on Jadon Sancho. But Larry, on midfield, you mentioned Mason Mount and George mentions Kobbie Mainoo there. You can get into individual performances and what it means for each individual, etc. Just in regards to the shape and take into consideration the last two games as well, but especially this Arsenal game, I was having a discussion with you throughout the game, but both with Kobbie Mainoo in the first half and then Scott McTominay in the second half. In terms of, I thought everyone was good and the Kobbie Mainoo was very good, Mason Mount was very good, but just in regard, what was the shape? In regards to, okay, we know when Casemiro sort of sits there, he's going to sit a little bit more central and deep, but Kobbie Mainoo did have a feel for me of being a defensive midfielder, but also I could make a case that he was the right midfielder. And then Scott McTominay comes on and he was kind of the number 10. So I'm just thinking the shape of the midfield in terms of what Erik ten Hag's trying to do. I'm not saying it's not a critical way of saying what on earth is he doing, but what was he doing? Like in a good way, but just I couldn't quite make up the game plan in midfield while it worked.
I think it's a very valid question. From what I've seen, and even at times towards the back end of last season, I think off the ball, United set up in a 4-4-2. So I think that's why we're seeing Rashford next to McTominay. And that's when I said to you, what position is McTominay playing? I was like, might be a second striker. And I know we've joked about McTominay playing striker, so maybe Ten Hag's been listening to the podcast. But in all seriousness, I think defensively we set up in a 4-4-2. And the hope of that, obviously, is press from the front. But look, I'm sure that will change, and I think there'll be adaptability as we continue to go through the preseason, because United can't play one way against all oppositions. There'll be a recipe for each team that we verse, depending on what the threat and weaknesses of each team is. So that's what I'd say defensively. Offensively, I think in Mainoo's case, it's interesting. I actually just think that's just young player syndrome, where you seem to go into a pocket that you feel more comfortable in. And the vibe I got from him, because he was definitely a deep-lying midfielder, but I think he just kept gravitating toward the right, because you find when you watch young kids, they tend to float one way or the other. And I think with Mainoo, that it was a clear example of that. And look, that gets fixed with coaching and time on the training pitch. But
well, it might not even be a bad thing. Maybe it was instruction. Maybe it's sort of where the game sort of flowed him towards. It was just I couldn't sort of put him on a bit of paper where he was.
I think he was a midfielder, but in possession, he seems to drop into where the centre-backs are. Because if you actually look at Wan-Bissaka, at times looked like he was in midfield, to be honest. And then Mainoo looks like he was occupying a right-back position, but dictating play from there. So really interesting to see the transition between attack and defence and how United set up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, and all those questions I have of Eric Ten Hag and the individuals are not bad questions. It was just, it's something that what preseason is about, sort of looking at everything and sort of reevaluating everyone's options. But Steve, good to see you, mate. Hope all is well. Good first half. Jay, good to see you, mate. Hope all is well. Morning, boys. Is it too early to get excited about Mainoo? Never too early. And did Sancho gain an extra yard of pace? Jadon Sancho, Larry. When that ball went through and I think it was Gabriel misplaced it. Okay. Sancho's going to get it. He's going to get it under control. You have to find a pass, and he definitely won't have the pace to sort of score a goal from here. My God, he turned it on and sort of burst away. One, that specific incident, but also pre-season, while he's been, I think, performing not to his standard in regards to being a little bit sloppy, you can put that down to pre-season. While his performances haven't been quite there, he has looked a little bit sharper. Like he's maybe let himself down once or twice in regards to a touch here or there or a decision here or there. But he's looked a little bit sharper. But my God, he looked more than sharp here when he burst away from Gabriel.
Yeah, he did. And he does look quicker. That's been a criticism of Sancho. It's the way he plays has always been he waits for the defender to do something, whereas Garnacho makes the defender make a decision, right? So that was kind of the way we differentiated between the two players. But today... and even with the ball, there were times where Sancho looked dangerous. And look, he's playing in a position that, it's obviously not familiar to him, but I think he's making a fist of it. And I have to say, he did look quick. And look, he's at an age, and if you're into sports science and all that kind of thing, you can continue to improve your pace well into your 20s. So maybe he's doing some speed coaching, who knows? But it was really pleasing to see, because if he can go past the player, he's got all the dribbling capabilities and passing capabilities to be an absolute threat. So I'd like to see him in a wide position, though, throughout this preseason. I want to see him occupy a flank, because that's ultimately where he'll do the most damage during the season, you'd think.
Yeah, definitely. Rob here, good to see you. In regards, I think he watched a match with his Arsenal mate Scott. Neat performance from those 3 points or 3 clean sheets. Yeah, haven't conceded a goal yet, which is a good sign. But just on Arsenal, George brings up here, Havertz and Wrights went missing. Look, it's pre-season. If we lost the game, we'd say it's just pre-season. So it's not to go win on Arsenal. We sort of shared our opinions on them and their transfer business a couple of days ago. Again, they'll be fine this season. I'm sure Rice will be okay. Havertz, maybe a different kettle of fish, but just their performance and their sort of setup in regards to, we made the point clear in the second half, that's their third game. So some of their second game, and Declan Rice's second game. You're coming on Lindelof, Dalot, Maguire, McTominay, Casemiro, Rashford, all their first game in our second half. And, it was quite even. No one sort of really dominated. They didn't really look as good as probably what they should have. Yeah,
look, I'm not one to make an early call, but I will make an early call here. Rice will go down as a flop by the end of the season. I guarantee it. I think for the price tag that they've paid for him, there's no level of performance that he is capable of that's going to justify that price tag. So even if he's doing a 6 or 7 out of 10, they won't be happy. Particularly,
which is what he should be brought in for. Which he should be brought in for £30 million to do a 6 out of 10.
Exactly. Like the most you would pay for that player, even with an English tax, is probably 60 million. The fact that they've gone and listened to David Moyes and paid the 105, if he's not scoring 15 goals and getting 20 assists this season, it's an utter failure. That's the top and bottom of it. So good luck to him, because he got outshone by an 18-year-old who's barely played first-team football.
First-team football, our back four in the first half. We're talking about, is it a bit of Arsenal's first team, full-strength team, and Manchester United's reserve team? And I thought, yeah, okay, it kind of has the feel of that. But then I went through the individuals and hang on, this is our first choice back four. I still potentially I'm probably in a little bit of a minority, tend to sort of believe Diogo Dalot could be first choice right back over Aaron Wan-Bissaka. That's a flip of a coin decided on the day. But I think long-term, that's what, in terms of the way Eric Ten Hag wants to play, I see a future where Diogo Dalot goes above. At the moment, if I'm picking a Champions League final tomorrow, Wan-Bissaka starts. But I think as the season progresses, if Dalot plays well, he will be first choice. But that's first choice back four. Rafael Varane, Lisandro Martinez, Luke Shaw. For 3 clean sheets.
I love Martinez. Good. What a player, honestly.
Yeah, he's getting stuck into tackles. And look, no bad tackles, but definitely treated it as a Man United Arsenal match.
Yeah, he plays with aggression, and that's what you fall in love with as a fan. Sorry, Tom, I wasn't going to bite the bait, but I can't help it. Diogo Dalot, I don't see it. I really don't. I never have.
At the start of this time last year, we all had him first choice right back. He was probably our best player before the World Cup.
Because we weren't seeing Wan-Bissaka. So we just had to assume that Wan-Bissaka wasn't doing something in training. But to be honest with Diogo Dalot, I think his best and Wan-Bissaka's best. Wan-Bissaka's best is just better. And even today, like, again, I know it's his first game, so you don't want to be too critical. There was a point in time where he got caught on the ball and he just kicked it straight into their player. Like, boot it out or just launch it up the field. Just he seems anxious on the ball. Like, there's this false narrative that he's good on the ball. I think he's okay. I don't think he's clearly an above brilliant compared to Wan-Bissaka.
It's harder. Aesthetics and stats will tell two different stories in regards to I just think, and again, Wan-Bissaka's first choice at the moment. I just think in terms of the way we want to play, like, yes, in terms of stats, in terms of effective crosses and everything, assists, Wan-Bissaka and Dalot might actually be a closer story than the eye test does tell. But I just think if Dalot does get his act together and start performing well in terms of especially that inverted sort of coming in and collecting the ball a little bit, potentially there is a route to be first choice. But at the moment, Wan-Bissaka, no doubt, especially defensively. But go through the front three then. The front three, okay, Sancho, Anthony. I thought Anthony looked okay. Looked quite sharp. Looked a bit dangerous. Again, I think that is Anthony. Some days he's going to put it in the top corner and he's going to be brilliant. Some days he's not. We're going to say, oh, he's only got a left foot. It's one of those things. Any other individuals in that first half you want to touch on?
Yeah, no one really stood out. Garnacho did not get involved at all. I don't remember him touching the ball. Did he touch the ball?
He made one very good run past a player, got into a dangerous area. But yeah, it was one of those games where I think Arsenal players will be saying the same thing. Havertz didn't get in the game. Was that Havertz's fault or was it Garnacho's fault? Sometimes those happen.
No one's fault. It was just an observation. Like, he just didn't seem to get involved or the ball just didn't come to him. Shaw's ball for Bruno was brilliant. I liked that. Shaw is so good. Like, Shaw on the ball is a different kettle of fish. And I guess that's where I draw the difference, like, to validate my Dalot point. Like, if you look at Luke Shaw on the ball, you can say, like, this guy's a ball-playing fullback.
He's up for testimonial this season.
Yeah, 10 years. 10 years at United. Good on him. But, like, that's the point of difference. Like, Diogo Dalot doesn't have that ball that Shaw does. And that's why I'm like, okay, so well, given what Wan-Bissaka offers you defensively, and just to be honest, for me on the eye test, I enjoy watching Wan-Bissaka more. Just seems to move a bit easier, runs up and down the pitch, works hard, aggressive. Anyway, Bruno looked good as well. I thought Bruno played very well.
I didn't really see any replays. A lot of people, I saw Twitter, everyone sort of giving, and again, I haven't really seen any replays. In the American TV sort of cameras at NFL grounds, it's always hard to look at when goals go in, when there's that white line behind the goal line. The goals are all distorted to me. But a lot of people saying it's a Ramsdale error. But from my first viewing, it was okay. It's probably not the greatest at goalkeeping, but from first viewing, left foot strike from outside the box, a decent little goal by Bruno.
I think Ramsdale should have saved it.
Yeah, look, I haven't seen a replay, so it might be a howler, but just my first viewing.
The shot is like smack bang in the middle of the net, and Ramsdale, like, he gets his hands on it too. Like, it was poor. He should have saved it. That's not to take anything away from Bruno. Great to see him use his left foot, and a good shot from distance, but Ramsdale should have saved it, absolutely. I think it was a midfield battle. The first half was a midfield battle. I don't think the front three of either team really got involved. Saka was the most involved for Arsenal, but really didn't get to produce too much.
Speaking of goalkeepers, you got Ramsdale there. Tom Heaton played 90 minutes. Interesting, and not to be critical of that, but just interesting in regards to Onana wasn't involved. I'd assume now Onana plays every minute of every game in pre-season now.
Yeah, you would think so. But I got to say, I think Heaton is a very capable and steady deputy. I think with the ball at his feet, he's not bad either. And he commands his area. He does command his area, Heaton. If he has to, like, God forbid, but if Onana went down injured or anything like that, if Heaton's our backup, I'm filled with full confidence. He's always been a very steady professional goalkeeper. And let's not forget, Tom Heaton's been a Premier League goalkeeper for the best part of his career. A first choice one. He's chosen to come to United.
Your reserve goalkeeper, young up and coming keeper who can potentially challenge a first choice goalkeeper, or an old experienced pro like a Tom Heaton. Like if you're creating a team from scratch, what's your reserve goalkeeper situation?
I go the older experienced pro because I think a young goalkeeper needs to be playing regular football to maximize their potential. So, like, obviously, Kovar looked really good, for example. Kovar isn't served well by playing 10 games for Manchester United. He needs to go somewhere and play regular football so he can continue to improve on his game. So then he can challenge. What we saw with Henderson and De Gea was probably the right idea, but Henderson obviously in his head thought he was number one, so maybe that dynamic didn't work. But when Henderson actually returned to United, he was 26 years of age. So, I mean, that's actually a good age for a goalkeeper to challenge for first choice. His game's established. For someone like Kovar, you want him to continue to work on his game. So I think it's the right choice to have your backup as someone who's a bit more experienced.
Jay here saying, did anyone notice they didn't press Heaton as a precursor for Andre Onana? How are teams going to line up? And again, I think early on in the season, teams will press us high and teams will try and sort of catch one or two mistakes. But ultimately, let's say we start playing well and Onana sort of fits in. How are teams going to approach Man United? Are they going to sit off and we're just going to sort of be facing low blocks? Or are the teams going to sense danger or smell danger that we are playing, sort of, I wouldn't say risky football, but we are playing with fire a little bit at the back in terms of the way we will play out. And they'll actually press us high. And obviously, if we do have Garnacho, Rashford, Sancho with his newfound pace, that could prove beneficial for us if they do press Onana.
I think even last season, most teams actually didn't press De Gea. They would actually press whoever he passed to. So I wouldn't read too much into that. I think it will depend who plays. If Harry Maguire plays, you press Harry Maguire because he's a bit clumsy with the ball at his feet at times. But with Onana, I think that the improvement, and you saw it actually, if you think for the ball that Shaw put in for Bruno, Arsenal were pressing United quite high. It was actually a bit of brilliance and vision from Shaw to ping the ball over and get Bruno in behind. So I think Arsenal did press us, but I don't think they pressed from the goalkeeper. I think they pressed from the centre-backs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Look, and every team definitely has their own tactics and own approach. George, here's Fred with. I don't think Fred's travelled with the US tour, but I think there is a potential plan for him to join. Maybe I'm not sure, but it looks like potentially the official line is there's a personal reason why he stayed in the UK. You put two and two together. My guess would be that's a transfer issue they're sorting out. But who knows? If it is a personal issue, fingers crossed, all is okay. But I have a feeling that is to do with the potential move to Fulham. But Larry, second half, you mentioned Harry Maguire there. In regards to, let's start that back. I was actually surprised Alvaro Fernandez didn't play ahead of Brendan Williams, but maybe Alvaro Fernandez is potentially, who knows, he might be the captain against Wrexham. Who knows? So maybe that is the reason behind that. Maybe he'll get 90 minutes there. But I was surprised he didn't get the nod over Williams. But other than that, your first minutes of pre-season for Dalot, Maguire and Lindelof. Now, obviously, there was a drop-off, no doubt, because there's a drop-off in quality from first choice, but there's also their first 45 minutes of pre-season as well. So that back four in the second half ultimately did keep a clean sheet as well. Just your thoughts, was it a drop-off, oh my God, we need to fix this, we need to improve, or was it a drop-off because it was their first 45 minutes against Arsenal's third game?
I'm not going to read too much in the drop-off. I think the point you make is right. The second team particularly hasn't played a lot of football. I'm trying to think of... Well, yeah, that's the thing. I'm trying to think of that second team. Has anyone played a game? And I think Ahmad has. And yeah,
Brendan Williams, Ahmad, and Forson.
Yes. But outside of those three, first time football for every other player. So, I mean, you don't want to be too critical. Actually, the most pleasing thing about this performance, Tom, is the fact Arsenal put out a pretty strong team. Yeah. And I thought United had Rashford on the bench. Obviously, Casemiro was on the bench. Casemiro looking nice and chubby, by the way. But nonetheless, United didn't put out their strongest team and took it to Arsenal. So really pleasing signs if you're a United fan. Obviously, too early to get ahead of ourselves. I think Kobe Mainoo is the most exciting one. The fact that he can come in, pardon me, he plays in that deep position, which for an 18-year-old is crazy to me. But if you're going to ask him to play a particular game to relieve Casemiro, all the signs suggest that he could probably do it. Maybe we don't need to go into the transfer window.
It's interesting. The commentator was talking about the fixtures last season in terms of Bruno playing 60 games, Casemiro playing almost 50-something games. But you talk about the Casemiro, and sometimes we have a bit of a joke and a laugh in regards to the visual of some of these players when they return from pre-season. You look Luke Shaw, Casemiro's got a few kgs on his cheeks. But in terms of just the overall look of it, again, I know this is not the 90s where players go off and drink for 3 or 4 weeks before they come back and start doing beep tests. I understand it's a completely different professional level of approach from these players and the clubs. My God, they look fit. Like it looks like okay, it's not a FA Cup final in terms of the intensity, but it's intense. I thought it was a really good showing from both teams, and it's a credit to them. Now, obviously, they're highly paid, so they bloody better keep themselves fit in the off season. But I think you do need a little bit of credit in just terms of the individuals, in terms of after last season to come back and look in the shape they are, not only physically but the way they're actually performing. I mean, especially those first half performances, the intensity. I've been quite impressed with.
Well, there's 25 people watching right now, and if you agree with me, hit a like. But this is where I actually want to give some credit to someone we haven't mentioned yet, Tom. Erik ten Hag. He's driving the standard. It's as simple as that. Already this season, before a ball's been kicked, he's changed his captain, and he's been on the front foot and announcing that. And that's what I love about ten Hag. He clearly drives standards. He doesn't shy away from the tough conversations. He makes sure they happen, and as a result, he also is driving the stand. Even in his the interview he did with MUTV, he's like, "We have to do better. We have to push for more." He is not.
He's celebrating the goals as well.
Yeah, he did. That's the thing. I think he's a full-hearted manager and a full-hearted bloke. I think he's very much I'll celebrate your successes, but I'm gonna criticize you when you fail. And man, he's so refreshing to watch, Ten Hag. I hate making the comparison, but he's got a lot of traits that are very comparable to Sir Alex Ferguson. I have to be on. Like he just does. He's got the ruthlessness of Fergie that I don't think any manager that's come before, since Fergie's retired, has had. I mean, obviously Jose is more dictator, whereas I feel Ten Hag actually has the man management down pat.
Yeah, definitely. Josh, good to see you, mate. Hope all is well. Hope you're keeping well on your trip. But Larry, in regards to, you talk about Erik ten Hag being ruthless, and 100% agree, of course. And this is not downplaying the decision. This is not saying it's not a ruthless decision. I look at the Maguire situation, which we haven't really discussed in regards to the change of captaincy, which we both agree with, and we're both happy. I've had my questions over Bruno Fernandes as captain, but in regards to the context, I think he's improved. I think he's matured. I like the decision. I'm happy with it. But that decision to change captaincy, yes, it's ruthless, and we all agree with that. But I just sort of take a bit of a deeper look at it. Is it really that ruthless? Like, is it kind of just an untenable position where any manager simply had to change? Like, or could Erik ten Hag have been fallen victim to what the hierarchy at Manchester United have influenced for so much over the last decade, where there was a possibility he could have actually kept Maguire on as captain? But my personal opinion was simply it just had to change. Like, there was no decision to make.
Well, let me answer your question with a question. I think Erik ten Hag, if he didn't want to be ruthless, I mean, Bruno wore the armbands last season. Couldn't he have easily just let it simmer along without making any sort of official announcement?
But that's sort of my point. That's what I thought. Sort of potentially,
but that's the point, though. He made it public. He made a point of it. So that tells me he is ruthless, and he's not shying away from difficult conversations, and he's giving transparency to the fans, which is something that we're always so critical of. We still don't know what's happening with Mason Greenwood. We still don't know what's happening with the ownership. But Erik ten Hag himself is providing transparency wherever he can, and he's done that with the captaincy. And I think that that's really important, because if you're a prospective, it's not just about the fans. If you're a prospective player that's interested in joining Manchester United, if you're an agent that looks at dealing with Manchester United, you need to know what the manager's about. And this manager is saying, I got nothing to hide here. I'm telling this guy he's not captain. And honestly, what really, I mean, in this situation particularly, let's go a layer deeper. This is absolutely a power play from Erik ten Hag to tell Maguire, leave the club. Because he's even said in the press conference, he's like, oh, well, what have you spoken to Maguire about his position? He's like, oh, no, it was purely about the captaincy. He's one of 4 centre-backs, and he can compete for his spot.
That was my next thing, which I completely love from Erik ten Hag, and he's completely right. But it goes as a nice segue into the next discussion point before we start to wrap up. In regards to that, he did make the point of 4 centre-backs. You need 4 centre-backs in regards to 1 or 2 injuries, 1 or 2 suspensions, and just sort of the fixture congestion we'll obviously run into throughout the season. We do have 4 centre-backs now. Obviously, the likes of Mengi, Tuanzebe have left, sort of things. So at the moment, now, I wouldn't obviously you can throw Luke Shaw in there, and a lot of us would potentially see a future or some games require that left-footed sort of replacement for Martinez. But on paper, we're drawing a team up. Let's say we have 4 centre-backs: Varane, Martinez, Lindelof, and Maguire. We all sit here and agree that you need 4 options at centre-back. Maguire is obviously 4th choice at the moment. No one's hiding from that. Now, 4th choice, you don't want on $200,000 a week. You don't want the distraction of the former captain. So obviously, everyone sides on the fence that it's best if he's to move on and a club to come in and sort of we get that new replacement. But in terms of Erik ten Hag's thinking, if you take away the baggage of the wages, in terms of we always look at, I'm not saying Harry Maguire's the perfect option to have, but if we look at a striker, we always want different options. We want a target man. We want that man who gets in behind. At right mid or right wing, you want someone in going behind or someone you want in cut in. Centre midfield, you want that aggressive player or you want that creative player. You always want these different things. At centre back, it doesn't seem that there's ever a real discussion. We just want the centre back. You never want these options, but sometimes different games call for different options. So I'm just thinking, take away the baggage of Maguire, just his style in regards to probably be the most powerful player in the air we have out of the 4 centre backs in terms of sort of winning headers. Now that shouldn't warrant a spot at Manchester United just because you win headers. But if you took away all the baggage as a 4th choice centre back,
Eric Ten Hag. No, I can't see a game where you say, "Oh yeah, this is the job for Maguire." I think he used to have a necessity, but he's not.
So which young centre back, Will Fish or Reece Bennett? Who do you think one of them is over Maguire at the moment? If you're starting an FA Cup final,
I think your solution's in the transfer market. I think you go and buy a young centre back.
But if we don't have the money for Højlund, I don't think we've got the money for a new centre back.
I mean, I would have thought Ted and Mengi would have gone on pre-season tour. To be honest, I was pretty surprised he didn't. I have to assume he'll go out on loan. Otherwise, that seems a bit of a strange one for me from Ten Hag. But I don't know. Like for me, Maguire just
the reason I kind of bring it up.
I'd rather give it to a kid.
Instead of a kid, the reason I bring it up in regards to we had that discussion around a goalkeeper, reserve goalkeeper, is it a young player or is it an experienced player? And this is recency bias in me in terms of this wouldn't have been a discussion I was having 2 weeks ago, but it's one I just as a fan I want to have now. If you are able to offload Maguire but still want that 4th choice experience.
What experience? He gives me anxiety when he's on the ball. He gives himself anxiety when he's on the ball.
If he leaves, you have 3 centre-backs. You want a 4th choice who has great experience.
Luke Shaw can play centre-back.
Johnny Evans. We haven't talked about it.
Well,
I'll take him. But let's say you offer. Yeah, we get rid of Maguire. We have 3. Eric Ten Hag says he wants 4. We're not buying a 4th centre-back.
I'd take it. Don't get me wrong. And I think Johnny Evans shouldn't have been allowed to leave Manchester United to begin with. So that's a key point. But also, he's got the leadership, the experience. He's a Premier League winner. So I'd be all for it. And I think he can absolutely do a job. Look, in terms of his fitness, I didn't watch a lot of Leicester. I saw enough of them, but I didn't see too much of Johnny Evans to really talk about his fitness or his level of performance last season. However, he was part of a team that got relegated. So, I mean, I don't know. Now you put better players around him. Obviously, that helps. I think he's an intelligent footballer. So, look, I wouldn't be against it. But, look, at the end of the day, it can't be Maguire. He has to leave. Whether it's on loan, a sale.
Yeah, my discussion just comes around 4 centre-backs. Because at the moment, if Martinez picks up an injury, Varane, I just think I'm not sure what happens.
To centre-back, and if Alvaro Fernandez is integrated as part of the first-team squad, then you've got backup at left-back. So that's also an option.
Yeah, definitely. If there's anything else in the live chat you want us to discuss before we do wrap up, do throw it in there. But is there anything else in regards to looking ahead to pre-season or these Arsenal matches? Obviously, the penalty shootout, 5 very good penalties by Man United. Fabio Vieira's penalty hasn't quite yet landed. But as I said at the start, always good to beat Arsenal twice in a day.
I'm going to start a series called Find Tony, because when no one's telling us whether Martial's injured, whether he is in fact on tour. He's been listed in that he's on tour. I didn't see him today. He's not on the pitch. Can someone in the presser please ask Eric Ten Hag when can we expect to see Anthony Martial? Because the only thing that might frustrate us this preseason is we want to see Rashford played on the left, and I think he's going to getting forced to play down the middle unless Martial's available. So yeah, I'd like to someone ask Eric Ten Hag, where's Tony? I want to know where Tony is.
Have a bit of a look into the future in regards to just guess how pre-season will go in regards to who you think will perform, who you think will get minutes here or there. In regards to, at the moment, Marcus Rashford, again, it's 45 minutes. He's only just come on now, but he's going to start against Wolves, whether it be the left or through the middle, who knows. But at the moment, from what we have seen, especially with Jadon Sancho, Wolves' first game of the season, or Højlund hasn't come in, Manchester United still sort of dealing about over £3 or £4 million. Who starts up front against Wolves?
Well,
because it's not that far away.
No, it's not. It's 3 weeks away. If Højlund's brought in and Martial's not fit, it has to be Højlund. I think United will sign Højlund. I think that will happen. Look, and I've said on here before, I don't think ideal set scenario, just as a 20-year-old, I wouldn't want to start him. I don't think that that's fair to him because if he doesn't score, while most fans are sensible, the vocal minority on Twitter will be on his back. And that's not fair to a 20-year-old player. So I'd like to see Martial be fit. And obviously, you bring Højlund in off the bench and allow him to prove himself, score a goal. And I think by the end of the season, he probably ends up starting. If Martial's not available, and let's assume the worst with Højlund, it'd have to be Rashford because we're well stocked in the wide areas. And if, like we said, because Sancho is now on the peptides and has found some speed, maybe Sancho can start. Who knows? But I think we got some good competition in those wide areas, which is pleasing.
What would you rather see in regards to, okay, we don't want to see Sancho as a striker. You'd rather Rashford, even though we prefer Rashford on the left. If you pick a striker, okay, you pick Marcus Rashford. But we want to see Marcus Rashford on the left because that's his best position. Could you make do with Sancho through the middle, Rashford on the left, or it would be Sancho on the left, Rashford through the middle?
I'm not a fan of Sancho down the middle. I think he's simply plugging in a gap at the moment.
But how much do you want Rashford's strengths on the left?
But it's a difficult one because, like, even with let's go back to last season, you had Wout Weghorst up front. Rashford ends up drifting centrally because the striker really was ineffective with the ball. So I think you end up in a similar situation where we actually need a focal number 9 who can take the pressure off Rashford so he can go one-on-one with a fullback. Like that's the whole purpose of getting him out on the left. So United really need to get some striker business sorted. Now, whether that's you got Arsenal's doctor, maybe they'll take him from this preseason tour, just start joining Manchester United's tour, start injecting the peptides into Anthony Martial's hamstring and get him sorted for the first game against Wolves. But United need to sort out the striker, Tom, because the flow-on effect to the whole team, honestly, it's Manchester United. You've got to have a striker.
Oh, definitely. And I think this is very much going to be highlighted when Onana's going to come in. I think we're going to play much better football than ultimately it's going to be let down when we get to the other 18-yard box in terms of he's going to break the lines, or we're going to find ourselves in such a great position off the way we're now playing out from the back, and it's going to fall to someone who's not a striker who it should be fallen to. So definitely does need to be addressed. Fingers crossed Højlund is that man, and Erik ten Hag sees some finishing ability and some striking ability that we can't as of yet. But look, all things considered, there's no doubt there's a huge cloud over the club. There's a negative feeling around the club at the moment in regards to the Blazers selling. At the end of the day, I don't care about 3 points. I don't care about shiny new toys. We're talking about the Glazers, and that is weighing the club down. That is the pressing issue. That's all we should be talking about. Now, we're football fans. We want to look at what happens on the pitch. So we're talking about preseason matches in New York against Arsenal. The discussion is what's happening in the banks in New York in regards to the rain group. That's the discussion where we should be having, but that's very boring in terms of the technicalities and the logistics behind that. But in regards to what we have seen on the pitch, not the transfer market, but we have seen on the grass, 3 games, I've been very, very impressed. Now, I don't like a great preseason in regards to I don't like a flawless preseason. I need to lose a couple of games because if we win every game in preseason, it guarantees a 1-0 defeat at Wolves in the first game of the season. So I do want to see us maybe have a little bit of a hiccup and a wake-up call on preseason. But 3 wins, 3 clean sheets, and a penalty shootout win. Erik ten Hag is doing something right.
Almost as good as the Bangkok Cup, Tom.
Yeah, we haven't got a trophy yet, unfortunately.
Look, you have to be pleased. I'm keen to see how United go against Real Madrid. I think they're the next game. So that'll be a match that I'm very much looking forward to because obviously Real Madrid are a better team than Arsenal. Shock, I know. But I think that's where there's a real challenge. And you look at their midfield players, how do our midfield stock against those? So that'll be a good test. And obviously the likes of Vinicius Jr. is dangerous. What happens with Kylian Mbappe? That's really another interesting story. Yeah, it's chaos.
The Mbappe, he'll sign a new contract at PSG, or he'll be playing for Real Madrid. This discussion of him coming to the Premier League, it's not happening. It's Real Madrid or PSG.
Yeah,
nothing's happening there. I don't know what's happening there, but I know nothing in regards to Manchester United is happening. And to finish off, Eric Onana is rubbish. While we don't agree with that. And look, Larry, just on Onana to finish off, while we're both sort of fans of David De Gea and maybe showed a little bit more patience than some parts of the fan base, I think we both sort of sided on the fence that, okay, it was time for a change, move on, let's bring in the man Erik ten Hag once. We haven't seen Onana on the pitch yet in regards to sort of playing. We'll hopefully get that in the coming days. But just in regards to the way we lap these sort of superficial things up as fans in regards to photos and interviews, everyone's already sort of fallen in love with Onana in regards to what we've seen behind the scenes, and I just think, it's a feel-good factor.
Well, he did his own release video, so that was pretty impressive.
He's releasing everything. He's releasing the away kit. He's confirmed he's
It
moved to
wasn't the
Man
away
United.
kit, to be fair. It was training
No.
gear that seems to be in the same design as the away kit. But obviously, someone's given it to him. I don't think he bought it off JB Sports and walked up into Carrington. So, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But he's a character. And look, you can never have enough characters in a football team. If you look at Manchester United's most successful era, there have been 5-6 players who you could say, oh, yeah, I can give them the armband. And you need those kinds of players. He will frustrate at times, I have no doubt. He will raise our blood pressure, I have no doubt. But I'm excited to see how he evolves the way United play. The only final comment I'd like to say is I hope Ahmad's not injured because I think Anthony needs some serious competition. I think Ahmad, in terms of potential, I think Ahmad's got more than Anthony does. I think he's just got a bit more to his game. I think Anthony's got a brilliant, world-class left foot. I think Ahmad maybe doesn't quite have the brilliance on his left foot that Anthony does, but I think he's a more balanced player. So I'd like to see him challenged a little bit.
Yeah, could be, no doubt. And we'll finish with Samuel. Good to see you, mate. Wow, what a match. Yeah, for a preseason match, all you can ask for. I say no injuries, but Ahmad potentially did pick it up an injury. But fitness, minutes in the tank, and beating Arsenal twice. So I'm off to watch Arsenal Fan TV, see what Ty is blaming the referee for, and enjoy the rest of my weekend. As I said, Real Madrid's coming around the corner very soon, and fingers crossed we can discuss another win and another good performances. So enjoyable day, enjoyable start the day. Larry, any other parting words before we crack on with our activities?
We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. Help us reach that by the end of the season. Might be a giveaway if you get involved. Who knows? But you'll only find out if you do subscribe. So make sure you do that. Stay clicked to all our socials. Tom's doing a belting job getting the nice photos out. I've been really impressed, Tom. You're more creative than you look. So full credit to you there. But no, everyone have a great weekend. Great to start the Sunday with a Manchester United victory. And I'm going to go put my football boots on and try and emulate Luke Shaw's ball from left back.
Well, you mentioned creativity there. One man we haven't discussed scored the match-winning penalty, and I thought it was actually quite good in the second half. Christian Eriksen, good to see him back. He's a bit of a forgotten man in regards to all the sort of midfields comings and goings, but good to see Eriksen out there looking fit and performing. So hit that notification bell. Please do leave a like on the video on your way out, and Larry and I will chat to you quick smart. Until then, cheers.